County Planning and Development Director. This is the kickoff meeting for the comprehensive plan, and that is one document, but under that umbrella there's all different kinds of moving parts of whether it's Jasper, Pickens County, the unincorporated communities, the smaller communities of Talking Rock and Nelson, the gated communities of Bent Tree, Big Canoe. Basically, this is a plan that the state requires that each local government complete to be a certified local government. But the state, although having an outline, intends this to be a community plan for and by Pickens County citizens, business owners, and others. Our state coordinator out of Rome with the regional commission is Ethan Calhoun. And one thing that the comprehensive plan is not, it is not an added cost. So there is zero added cost to Pickens County taxpayers for this plan. If you have any questions, I'll be a part of this really throughout. I'd love to talk to you face to face, by phone, whatever way you want to. I'll hand it over to Ethan. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Richard. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I'm Ethan Calhoun with Northwest Georgia Regional Commission. We're based out of Rome. We work out of Rome and Dalton. We have a 15-county region, goes all the way from Tennessee, all the way down to Haralson, Paulding County, almost in the outskirts of Atlanta. And what we do is a number of different things. We have several different departments. Specifically, I work in the planning department. We have economic development, grant writing, and all sorts of things like that. So we cover a lot of different facets in assisting our local governments and in several different ways, just to sort of make things go a little smoother. Because, you know, there's a lot of state regulations, federal regulation, grants, and things like that. And it's nice to have an entity that can sort of be the middleman in between to sort of interpret some of those things and assist local governments, because as you all well know, everybody gets really busy. You know, there's a lot of things going on, and sometimes we don't have the time in our day-to-day tasks to start planning about the long-term longevity of the community and get everybody sitting at the same table and people working together. So that's, you know, the state, as Richard mentioned, sort of promulgated this Georgia Planning Act back in 1989. And what that basically says is that local governments have to complete what's called a comprehensive plan. And you've all got a little handout, I think. If you don't, there's some up here. And it sort of lays out the internals of the plan, which I'll get into in just a second. But to build off of that, again, the state requires that in a way. They don't necessarily say you have to do it, but what they say is you have to complete this plan and a few other things to maintain what's called Qualified Local Government Status, or QLG. And to maintain that, you have to complete this plan. Well, this plan has what they call a partial plan update and a full plan update. Partial plan happens every 5 years, full plan update every 10 years. Now, Pickens County already has a comprehensive plan. They've had one since that early day, probably 1989 or so, and they started the process in 1990. And they've sort of incremented and changed a few things here and there along the way. And basically the last update, revision to the current standards, which are what you all have there today, that was done in 2014. And before the comprehensive plans were these really kind of cumbersome things. They were extremely thick. They were like 3 parts: community assessment, community participation, and a community work program. And what that did was, it actually, in some cases, for a lot, especially smaller governments who don't have a full-size planning staff, became more of a burden than anything, because they had to complete all these preliminary type things, do all this data research and all that stuff, and didn't actually really get to focus on planning per se. And so in 2014, the state decided, well, maybe we need to simplify this process a little bit, make it a little bit more customizable, you might say, and a little overall simple in its entirety, so that communities can focus more on what it was meant to do, and that was to bring the community together, the leadership, and sort of get a common vision about what that community wants to be in 10 or 20 years, or just looking at in the future. And so to do that, the three sort of steps of planning in general, and at the simplest term, is to figure out where you are now, where you want to be, and how do you get there. And so that's what we're going to sort of start to do. Now tonight's exercise is simply a public hearing. We're required, if you see the sheet in front of you there, that we have to have an initial public hearing and we have to have a final public hearing. And this is just a way to make sure that the citizens and folks in the community are aware that the county is planning, the cities are planning, and they're working together, and what this consists of and why they're doing it. And in this case, in the fact that the regional commission, or myself, will be working on the plan, it's not going to be any added expense to that local government. And so that's what tonight is all about, and just to get everybody together and sort of get familiarized with the process and how to get yourself involved, how to stay involved. And we've got some sign-in sheets up there, so everybody make sure to fill those out before you leave. If you haven't already, we've got an email sheet up there as well. You put your name and email if you'd like us to send you further information as we go through the process, just to keep you all in the loop. There will be things posted in the paper, but as most of you know, not everybody reads the paper. Most folks don't flip through, all the legal ads and things like that to see things. So we want to make sure that we're doing the best we can to really advertise this and get as many eyes on it as possible, both within the county and without, so that everybody can have a chance to participate in the process. Now tonight we've got a couple of things that are somewhat interactive for y'all to do. We've got several maps you might have noticed around the room. One over here, we have a regionally important resource that says RIR. Well, there's a handout right up here that lists some of the information in that, and what that is just basically what resources you have here in the county that are sort of have a regional impact, a regional importance, and that can include wildlife preserves. It can be streams, protected waterways, watersheds, groundwater supply and recharge areas, things like that, and also historic and cultural items as well. So that's something that is interesting to look at. And let's see, we've got a survey up here. We've got one you can fill out manually. If you fill out that email sheet, we can send you an electronic email, and with a link on that, you can just click it. You can take one on the smartphone, you take it on a computer, you can email it to your friends, family, neighbors. And what we want to do with that is get as many folks to take that as possible. Right now, Whitfield County has set the record for a community survey at a little over 2,000. So that's a tough one to beat. But if we push it hard, we can do that. And the more we hear back from the community about what people think, as far as what do you think your strengths are here in Pickens County, what do you think maybe some issues might be, weaknesses, what are your opportunities, and just in general, what are your favorite things about the county, and what are things that you think could be improved? And that's essentially why we're here tonight. And let's see.
Ethan, if I can say one thing. Sometimes people have asked me, well, what is the comprehensive plan used for? The last one was adopted around 2008 and updated 2013. What are some typical, monthly decisions that are related to the comprehensive plan? Well, when we, as the county government, receive a rezoning request, I put together a staff report of different factors involved on why a property should or should not be rezoned. And one of those factors is the future development map of the comprehensive plan. And related to the comprehensive plan on a day-to-day basis is our official map, which a lot of folks call the zoning map. The official name for it is the official land use map, which is updated about once a year. And that will tell you, as a business owner, property owner, citizen, what your property is zoned in unincorporated Pickens County. And we have that map available on the Pickens County website as a PDF, but it's a static image that's a large file. The better option is you go on Pickens County website, within the planning and development page, you can find a web link. There's a website that it'll send it to you. It'll send you from Pickens County website to our consultant, Tri-State Maps. that has done a great job of putting our zoning on a website where you can zoom in and do a search and find, any address you want to in unincorporated Pickens County and find out a lot of information about it, including the zoning. So, as an example, if somebody wants to rezone from residential to commercial, and the future development map of the comprehensive plan says, well, this area is deemed to be conservation with residential for the most part, then most likely, as staff, I'm going to recommend denial. And so that's one example of what the comprehensive plan can do and how it can help a county government. The cities, you'll note in our official zoning or official land use map, the city of Jasper is in white, the city of Nelson is in white because they have their own zoning districts, own maps. The town of Talking Rock is incorporated, but they use the same zoning districts as Pickens County. So we work with them a little bit more in some ways than we do Jasper and Nelson. But one thing that I value, and I think is going to help on this plan, I really value working with folks with all the cities. And so, again, whether you're a citizen, whether you're a local government staff person or elected official, whatever your interest is in Pickens County and its cities, I'll be glad to meet with you at your place of business, at your convenience, talk to you on the phone. So just give me a holler. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. As Richard just mentioned about the comprehensive plan, the future development map and all that, we've actually got a copy right back there in the corner, the last adopted version back in 2008, you can see there. And just what we kind of look at there, we classify them as character areas. And again, so what we'll do is revisit that and look at those areas and see, well, maybe do we need to move some lines, or we maybe need to tweak a few things here and there as things change, because things are all the time changing, and that's why we have to have this plan update. Is what could happen in 10 years could change dramatically what's happening here in the county, here in the state, and in the nation. So we have to just continuously come back and revisit these things on that cycle. I think looking again at some of our activities we've got here tonight, some simple, just kind of interactive things. We got some chalkboards over here sitting on the front table here. Just before you leave, as you're walking around looking at the maps, write down what your favorite thing is about Pickens County, and then on the other board over there, write down one thing you might change about Pickens County to improve it in some fashion. And that's something we just like to do, generalize things like that, just to get a simple idea of what people feel about the county and what areas maybe we need to focus on. We're going to have some focus groups that are going to be appointed and put together to sort of drive this process forward, meet on a couple of times to decide a couple of things based off the information we get on the surveys, based off demographic data and things like that, population. And so we're going to look at a couple of things, go through those meetings. We're going to have another public hearing later on in the process. We're going to invite everybody back to look at the work we've done and get everybody's feedback on it, see if maybe we need to tweak a few things before we finalize the plan for the local governments to adopt. And that official adoption date you guys have there, I believe it's June 2018. So we've got just about a year to work on this plan, and that's plenty of time. It seems like a long time, but these things kind of take a good bit of work to go through. There's a lot of detail in these things, as general as they are. It's called the comprehensive plan because it is very comprehensive. We have the land use element, Richard mentioned, which everybody has zoning, so everybody will have that in the section as far as the cities and the county. We also work on the housing. We have optional housing elements. There's community goals. That's one of the biggest things we're going to first focus on. That's what part of this survey is for here, is to figure out what Pickens County's goals. What are the city of Jasper, Talking Rock, Nelson? What is everyone's goal for this county and the cities within over the next 10 years? So we need to set those goals first. Next thing we look at are your needs and what opportunities you have. to build on. So we'll work through those and see what we need to pay close attention to. And then we have what's called the Community Work Program. And everything up to this point is sort of just a way to justify the Community Work Program. And what that is a punch list for each local government that says, basically categorizes out in different facets like economic development, housing, land use, and it says basically over the next 5 years, what sort of projects can we work on to meet these goals? And then 5 years goes by, then we're going to come back and we're going to revisit that work program and conduct what we call a my mind just went completely blank all of a sudden. Everybody ever have that happen to you? We're going to conduct basically a...
What an assessment.
Come again?
An assessment.
An assessment, yes ma'am. We're going to conduct an assessment to say, okay, over the last 5 years, what have you completed and what have you not completed? And if so, why did you complete or not complete that project? Was it a lack of funding? Was it a change in administration? Or so on and so forth. And the state doesn't look at the government and say, oh, you guys didn't complete this project, shame on you or anything like that. They understand that things happen, things change, and that things may not get completed. But it's our goal to make a better plan that's feasible to obtain, that's not unobtainable or unreasonable, so that when that 5 years comes and we revisit the process and we look at the report of accomplishments, is what I was trying to think of a second ago. When we look at that report of accomplishments, that we can check those boxes and say, we accomplished this, we accomplished this. The more we can do that, what that does is makes you more competitive. So when the local governments decide, hey, we need some help with a big project, we need to apply for a federal grant or a state grant to get some money so that we don't have to burden taxpayers and we can accomplish a big project. Then they're going to reach out and apply for that grant through the state or the federal government. Well, one of the things a lot of those state and federal government grant administrators is going to look at, or reviewers is going to look at, is your comprehensive plan and your sort of your track history. They're going to look at your previous report of accomplishments and see, well, when this community sets out to tackle a project, are they generally successful or not? And so that's why we want to be really thorough with this plan and make sure that we do a good job on it. And to do a good job, we need to get as much feedback as possible from the officials, from the community itself, the citizens, the employers, the employees, and even people outside the county. You guys have some items here, some resources that sort of draw in a certain amount of tourism, natural areas and things like that. So sometimes it's good to hear back from some adjacent communities and see, if they come to Pickens County, why they come, and of course traffic and all that sort of stuff comes into play about things that might need improving. So just to sort of summarize all that, that's why we're here tonight. That's what we have set up for you to do here. So just keep in touch with us, and we'll be, again, posting things throughout the process to try to keep everybody involved, keep everybody in the loop. We don't want this to be too inclusive. We want to include everybody in on this, get everybody's feedback. Have I missed anything, Richard, you think we need to bring up?
No, I would just say, keep in your mind whether you're interested in, downtown, if you're interested in a certain, whether it's the school system, the hospital, parks in the county, at the level of unincorporated communities, the heritage that the county has, the potential that the county has in the future for whether it's tourism or industry or businesses or conservation. Really think about, okay, what is Pickens now? And based on what it is now, I'd love it if Pickens County was more blank. I'd love it if Pickens County was less blank. I'd love it if Pickens County was a little more different by having blank or by not having blank. No matter what, there's just no way, And everybody knows this, there's no way to keep things exactly as they are as of May 2017 because time marches on. So the question is, how is the ship going to be steered? What direction does not the state, what the direction does not county staff members, what direction do citizens want it to go? What direction do property owners and business owners want it to go? And I really, the best thing that I can do, the best thing that Ethan can do is listen. So that's why, please, we encourage you to take our business cards, give us a holler, email us. I'll be glad to meet with you face to face, but we've got to get the best input possible. If people love whatever it is, we don't want it to go away. We want to keep what people love, and then if there are things that need to be changed, is this comprehensive plan going to change it overnight? No. But it has the ability to form the basis of decision making in the future for the way the chamber goes, for the way that Nelson goes, for the way that Talking Rock goes, for the way that Jasper, for the way that the county, for the way that the unincorporated areas change, because they're going to change no matter what. So I don't have anything else.
That's great. You made a great point there. That's something we definitely need to iterate on, is that we don't want to be perceived as the state coming in, the big state or whoever coming in to say, we want you to plan this way. The way, as I mentioned earlier, they set the process up is it's been designed in such a way that we want you to tell us what you want, and we just happen to have the capabilities, the professionalism to be able to write that in the plan the way the state wants to see it. We want to put it into their format per se, and so that it passes muster with them, and it is going to be there for you all, and that's our goal. And if anybody has any questions, right now we can answer any of those. Again, our business cards are up here. Feel free to reach out, call, email, anything like that, and we will be in touch. Thank you all very much for coming out tonight. We really appreciate everybody coming out and taking the time to participate this evening. I've got to say, this is a much bigger crowd than we sometimes get for people to come out to public hearings and get involved in things like that. So thank you all very much for coming out tonight. And what this is going to do, the more people that get involved, is it's going to make Pickens County look really good. So again, when the state's looking to give money out and the feds are looking to give money out, and they're looking and deciding who are the best people to give it to, the better we can do this, the better these odds are going to be, and the more good things can happen, can come from this process. So thank you all again. Any questions?
Yeah, what focus groups are you planning on setting up, and when are you going to set those up, and when do they start?
Very good question, sir. We're going to set up what we call stakeholder groups, and that's just people who have a vested interest in the community, whether they're citizens, business owners, local officials, staff members, etc. What we're going to do is probably within the next month, we're going to reach out to each city, and we're going to have them appoint the folks that they want to be representatives of that stakeholder group. And we're all going to meet together in probably around about a month to sit down at the table and start talking about some results. Hopefully we'll get some information back from the survey, and of course we've got general information, statistics and things like that we'll look at. And we're going to look at the old plans and parts of that and see what had been planned 10 years ago and what projects have been worked on since then. And that's the sorts of things we're going to discuss in that stakeholder meeting, is just to get a good start on how we're going to write this plan. And so we'll probably have a minimum of 2 stakeholder meetings, and during that first meeting we'll decide how often they want to come back and meet. Do we want to meet monthly? Do we want to meet every other month? It just depends on how much information, how we sort of dive into things, how long it takes to sort of assess all the aspects of the plan.
You said the cities were going to appoint the stakeholders.
Yes, and the county.
Okay. So there's not any public invite to that?
Yes, the public is welcome to join those meetings, but the stakeholders themselves, we do have to have approval from local government to get a particular committee established. But the public is absolutely welcome to join in on those meetings and actively then participate in those meetings as well.
So I think maybe my piggybacking into that question is, are they using an independent marketing firm to like gather focus groups, or are they using voting records? Because, you know, if the stakeholder is in the government, and we're pretty big, and some of us are out rural, they don't know us. So my question is, how are they going to pick the focus groups? And what percentage of the population are they going to pick? And like, are they all going to be from Bentry, or, you know what I mean? It's a pretty big area to cover. So I'd like to know more specifically about how the selection process is going to work for those groups.
Very good question. And essentially the answer for that would be from the local government. Of course, reaching out to the local government and maybe saying, I would like to be a part of this process would certainly be one way to maybe put yourself on the radar for that. But they have that basically freedom to pick those stakeholders, and so that is the local government's position to do, as opposed to the regional commission and us writing the plan. We just sort of facilitate this process. It is the local government's responsibility to pick those stakeholders and, of course, advertise those meetings so that, again, the public can be there and participate if they would like.
I will note, though, also that, and I'll just speak for myself, I'd love to hear from anybody and everybody. And whatever input I get, I will pass on to Ethan. And just because I'm a county staff member, I mean, I'd love to hear, you know, from folks who are just interested in Nelson or just interested in Talking Rock or wherever it may be. And I'll for sure take that input and give it to Ethan. I'm not going to filter it. I mean, that's not my job. You know, it's not to pick and choose, well, this person's input is more important than this person's. I mean, if you've got an interest in Pickens County and all its cities, and that means, are you a resident? Are you a property owner? Are you a business owner? Do you, have an interest in the school system? Do you have an interest in the hospital? Do you have, some other interest? Whether it's banking, real estate, ag, whatever it is. If you love Pickens County and or its cities for whatever reason, and you're interested in it, and you want it to be better, whatever your definition of better is, I want to hear about it. Yes, ma'am.
Who will determine which specific stakeholder groups will be set up? Is it, you've mentioned healthcare, you've mentioned banking. At what point will you know there's going to be, 5 different groups and they're going to be X, Y, and Z? So that people can say, well, I'd love to participate in that.
Yes, ma'am. So the structure in terms of coordination, having the outline so that it fits the state rules, so that it's, the basic, how does it look on a sheet of paper, and the structure of the committees. I mean, that's something that Ethan, as the coordinator, I have to defer to him. But at the same time, I value and know how important it is to get input from a general person who may or may not be on that committee. I've been through this comprehensive plan before with a different local government in Georgia 10 years ago, and enjoyed it then, and will enjoy this one. And I'm in it for the long haul. So, you can talk to me throughout the rest of the year, and anytime up to the date adoption for next year. Again, I want to talk to you on a person-to-person basis, but there are structural requirements that Ethan, as a state employee, has to coordinate with us. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Who picks the people? She asked who picks.
Yeah.
And which are the groups?
And which are the groups? She
That's
asked
the question.
who's the man that picks the people?
I think sort of the answer to that again is that again, the local government, the city of Jasper, city of Nelson, city of Talking Rock, Pickens County, what they'll do is reach out probably to the basis of people that they know that sort of tend to get involved in things like that first. Now, people who reach out to them after being made aware of this process, again, can certainly reach out to the local government and say, I would love to be a part of this process. Put me on the list to be notified for when these stakeholder meetings are, and they'll probably allow everybody to participate that they want to. Again, the bigger the groups get involved, the better to a certain extent. We don't have 500 people in a meeting. That's a little kind of hard to coordinate, but they'll be able to pick those individuals. And to more specifically answer the question, as far as having like individual committees that are specific in their field, like a committee for healthcare, a committee for transportation, a committee for housing, or things like that, we really don't. It's not generally that we have each separate committees working on things. We just have one joint sort of mixed bag stakeholder committee where we hopefully will have representatives of each of those fields, and again, people that, taxpayers, business owners, citizens that just want to get involved. It doesn't matter where you live in the county or anything like that. It's trying to get a really and truly a diverse mix. The more diverse the group, the better, and the more people willing to be involved in the process, the better.
I'm not trying to be picky.
Yes.
It's not going to be the sheriff's department and local government. It's not going to be the hospital people. Is it going to be the commissioners? Is that who is going to pick the committee people? There's nobody got specific. If you reach out, who are you going to reach out to in the government? There's all kinds. There's sheriff's department, there's road department. Who are you reaching out to try to volunteer to? Nobody will say that part. Is it the commissioners
Is
that
it
are
the
going to
planning?
pick the group? Is it the
Right,
planning
so
commission?
particular, because I can just speak for the county government.
Right, who
Yes,
will
sir,
be the
particular to the county government,
What government?
I've got a list that all your names will be added to the list. So please, if you haven't, make sure that you have at least your name and email on there. So I'll add everybody's name here to a list I've already got, and I'll give that list to the Board of Commissioners. And it'll be up to them to decide who they want on the committee who's related to the county. Yes, ma'am.
But after the committees are set up, if I decide I want to be on a certain committee, can I not just contact the committee and say, may I come to your meeting? Or is it a closed meeting?
Yes, ma'am. They're open. They're public meetings.
So I could come?
Absolutely.
I think that's what they're concerned about.
And again, we won't have individualized committees that say, again, a specific committee for this and a specific committee for that. Our stakeholder committee is our committee.
Oh, so it's not really stakeholder groups, it's
Yes, ma'am.
stakeholder group.
Yes, ma'am. It's
Gotcha.
a stakeholder,
Okay.
one group of stakeholders that are stakeholders that are
Diverse.
diverse, yeah. Again, and they could be we want to get members from each city, we want to get members from each county, and we'd like to get a number of members from each county. We don't want one or two people. It'd be nice to have, at least, 5 to 10 people, and that way if schedule conflicts and things like that come up, that we get people at the table and each community is represented by that group, that no one's being left out. Yes, sir.
How are the committee appointees apportioned to the government? So 5 for Talking Rock, 5 for Nelson, 10 for the county. How
There are no rules and regulations to that. You could indefinitely have a stakeholder group as large as the committee would like to sit. If they had a number of people and said, that we're interested in participating, then they would pick out those folks that are going to come to the meetings. That's important too. That the folks that are going to be stakeholders are going to not only come to that first meeting, but to the meetings that are going to follow up to that to see that process through. So we want to be able to make sure that those folks that are stepping up to be stakeholders are going to be there from the beginning of the process to the end. And again, there's timing has to be set up whether we're going to have these meetings like today after work, which is generally preferable for most people so that they don't have to take off and things like that. And so all that will be decided probably over the next month about some scheduling to get that first meeting underway. And again, as Richard said, please leave your contact information and you will be notified about these meetings and so on and so forth, so that everybody can be in the loop and you can keep everyone else in the loop that couldn't make it to the meeting tonight. We'd like, everybody to spread the word, and again, as they say, put it out in the sunshine. Yes, sir.
I have a follow-on couple of questions. So you're gonna set up this stakeholder group. It's gonna have how many members? Let's say 20. And then who's gonna say, okay, Nelson, you get to send 3, Talking Rock, you get to send 2, county gets to send 10. Is that done by population?
No, sir.
Is that done by land area?
There is no cap. There is no cap on how many stakeholders can participate in the process.
Who makes the decision? Who makes the decision of how many?
That would be the committee. That would be the chief elected officials. That at the end of the day, they're adopting the plan, so they have that authority to, for lack of a better term, pick those stakeholders, or appoint, I guess is a better word, the stakeholders to participate in the process. But again, meetings are open door. Yes, sir.
Well, is there, I guess what I think maybe that they're trying to ask, is somebody actually in charge of all this, or is the county on the same level as Jasper, or is who's going to decide basically how many members are going to be, that's going to be in the stakeholder group? Is the county going to decide this? Is the city going to decide?
Good question. We'll clarify that. Each government, meaning the city of Jasper, will be the ones who appoint members for the city of Jasper, and they can appoint as many as they like to participate in those meetings. City of Nelson has that same ability. City of Talking Rock and Pickens County each have that right to that ability to pick those, and they are the they're the owners of the plan per se, and they're the engineers of the plan, and so they're going to pick those individuals or appoint those individuals, and they all own this plan. This is not just Pickens County's plan, and everybody else is invited to join in. Each community's plan is called a joint plan. Just means they're all doing it together, so that cover to cover, it is a comprehensive plan for the cities and the county. So each government, Nelson, Talking Rock, Jasper, and Pickens, will sort of have a section. So it won't be just one big mashed together plan. They'll sort of be, let's just say for lack of a better term, a chapter. That chapter will be Pickens County. The next chapter will be Talking Rock. Next chapter, Nelson, et cetera, et cetera. And each one of those will have their own issues, opportunities, their own work program, their own projects. But cover to cover, the plan itself will cover the entire county and the cities within, so that it's one document and not 5 separate documents. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if I understood you correctly, there is no mandate for how many participants are in these said focus groups, correct?
No, ma'am, there is
Okay,
not.
but in your experience, you probably have a really good idea or broad range of what the average would be. So would you say it's 10% of the population? 5% of the population? I mean, I know, I'm just saying, 3,800 people in Jasper. Obviously, you're not going to have 380 people,
Right.
right? But I'm trying to figure out if the state gives a recommendation for a proper spread, especially if you're leaving it to, I believe there's 3 elected commissioners, to pretty much handpick who gets to participate in this process. That's my question. It's what is the recommendation and what is the oversight if there's not adequate representation for those who all feel they need to be represented?
Right, and ma'am, that's a good point. And I'll say again, even if the committee is, let's say, a total of 20 people, again, I want input from everybody, not just those 20 people. He has to set up a committee because he's a state employee and the state tells him to, and this is a state-required plan. But as much input from everybody interested in Pickens is appropriate. So I want to hear from everybody. I don't want to hear just from the 20 committee members. Yes, sir.
I'm going to make a suggestion to you. Let's work with IT and let's get a quick web link that people that are interested in serving on that stakeholder committee could make an application to the Board of Commissioners, and it would go to the mayors for those that are in the city. And that would give the Board of Commissioners an opportunity to look at, not use voting precinct, but voting precinct, because that spreads the county through the 12 districts, and let them take a representative, of all of those and make sure that they're not all from one area. And I think that it would be a simple fix to do, a Google form, just to do a submission off the county's website and let people who are interested sign up. That way, nobody can say, oh, well, my voice didn't get heard, I didn't get the opportunity to apply. Whether they get chosen or not, I think it gives them an opportunity to look at the representation from the entire county as opposed to just a very small group that's handpicked. That would be a suggestion that I have for you.
Does that sound like even something that regional commission folks can
We
put
can
together
have,
pretty quick?
County IT can have it up for you tomorrow. I mean, if that's what you want to do.
Sounds good to me.
So when this committee meets and they're deciding upon the output, what's going to be in the report, how does that happen? How does that process happen? Do they vote on it? So when we all get together and say, well, Nelson's plan is this and Pickens' plan is this, who gets to vote? Who gets to say what the content is?
All right, so good question. Sort of how do we start? And basically, we start at 30,000 feet, and we just sort of do what they call the initial direction of the plan. And to determine the initial direction is to determine, the state likes to call this thing called a SWOT analysis, and that stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And that for each community decide what are your strengths, what opportunities do you have, what are weaknesses you think you have, and threats. What threats? What do you think threatens your community? Are there any threats to your community? So just to, basically go into that and brainstorm what that information is. We get each stakeholder sort of group will get together, and they'll decide each of those, hammer out those sorts of things per each government. So let's say we'll have 4 stakeholder folks sitting together, 4 stakeholder groups where they're all sort of sitting together per jurisdiction, and they'll decide per each community, these are our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And that's where we start. And then we start to work with, again, local government staff and things like that to start saying, well, what are some things we can do about this? What things can we do to basically address that SWOT analysis? And that's how we start moving forward in the process, is to figure out where are we now and then where do we want to be. And then it's a lot of the how do we get there involves a lot of local staff in figuring out, a lot of the ins and outs of how do we make these changes, or how do those things need to happen, and start putting that punch list together on how to get there.
So you're using standard project management terms. That's good. But who's leading that project? Do you have a project manager that's leading this thing?
That'll be me. I'll be here from the start today to the day the plan is officially adopted, and we'll be making sure that everything is distributed, making sure everybody gets that information, and we'll be writing the plan and holding those meetings.
Yes, sir.
Do you have an example of where we are today and what is our current plan? That would be where you begin. I think there's a lot of people that are searching for what's it look like, perhaps.
I'll be glad to get you any way you want a copy of the currently adopted comprehensive plan. It's on the Pickens County website, on the planning page of the county website. But I mean, if you prefer, come in tomorrow between 8 and 5, and I'll be glad, or one of our staff will be glad to get you off the whole hard copy of it. Right, either way.
Okay, but
Yes, sir.
it is on the website.
Yes, sir.
And
In the planning department?
Planning department
And is-
page of the county website.
and is the structure of that current plan similar to where the update is going to go? Is it consistent with?
It's going to be similar, as I mentioned earlier, very early on, that the standards were changed a little bit in 2014. So, it's going to be a little bit different. And, one thing I like to do in the updates, again, having the ability to do so, is make it more user-friendly, for lack of a better term, so that anybody in the county, any citizen or whoever that wants to access this plan doesn't need to be a state bureaucrat to understand it, that you can read through it, everything makes sense and explain. You'll not just have a lot of jargon and a lot of, page-to-page kind of stuff that gets a little dry. We're going to try to make it
But the
very
meat
friendly.
and the contents.
Meat and the content's going to be very, very similar to what's already there in the sense that there's already community goals listed in that plan. There is going to be, they used to call it issues and opportunities. Now they call it needs and opportunities. It's essentially the same thing.
Okay.
So things like that are going to be very much the same.
And I can say this because Ethan can't, just from a local perspective, but 15, 20 years ago, it might have been a 100-page document, very top-heavy. The state had many more requirements. The document from 10 years ago, less top-heavy, but still top-heavy. The state pared down its requirements with politics and other things that have come down the pike. The state requirements and red tape and regulations have lessened. And so, in a good way, it will be even more community-centered and less state regulations of you have to do all these things within our box than it's ever been before. Will it still be a state-required plan using their outline? Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll come back to you.
The online survey a lot of us did before the meeting, how is that going to be used? The things that we like about Pickens or Jasper, the things that we don't like, how is that going to be used? Is it
That's input that will be part of the development of the plan. Yes, sir.
all the items that are favorable? Is that going to be, how is that going to be used?
That will be, basically we're going to start with getting as much information as we can, as much input as we can, and the committee members are going to have input as the process goes on and a draft is developed. That draft will be available for public review and additional input and revision and tweaking, and the committee members will give more input, the elected officials will give input, because at the end of the day, it's something that the community members need to reasonably have a warm and fuzzy about, and the elected officials have to adopt it. So the elected officials have to feel that it is reasonably appropriate and something that is worth their time and worth their while to adopt in a public meeting. Right, let me come back to you, yes, sir.
Well, the question I had is that you mentioned the SWOT analysis. Okay, I'm familiar with that, know what it is. Is that information contained in the plan, or is that a working paper?
It's a working paper.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And would the working papers be available publicly as components that move with the planning process that are available to be?
Previous working papers
No, the ones that
that
are,
are being worked on.
that, for this process that's starting tonight. In a month, you'll have a committee or stakeholders, and then in 2 months, presumably, they will have met, done the SWOT analysis. How does that information get compiled? Presumably, it's a working paper.
I mean, obviously, I can't speak for Ethan, but speaking just for myself, as a public employee of the county government, everything that goes through my office, my computer, is public information. And whether it's comprehensive plan or something else, y'all are welcome to it. I'm a public employee, so the answer is yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, the point that I would make is the final document sometimes, as you indicated, it goes from historically from 100 pages maybe down to 30, okay? Well, obviously the 30 pages are just going to hit the high points and enough to be able to administer on a monthly or annual, whatever the basis is for whatever the jurisdiction is. But the guts of the planning process is, that's the sausage making. And a lot of times it's not pretty, but there's a lot of important information there and a lot of input that shows up. And presumably, it's all distilled out and then prettied up, and you got a public plan.
I think I can sort of address that. Something I've been doing recently that wasn't always done is trying to include some of that in the plan, but for administrative reasons, certain things like okay, for instance, the survey everybody takes, that is going to be uploaded digitally, meaning that a typist is going to sit down, take those manuals, key those in digitally. The reason we do that is because we use an engine that generates tables and things that says this many people chose this many people chose that. That way we can quickly assess that information. Well, at the end of the day, we're going to condense that into basically a Word document, and that will be a standalone thing for the stakeholders. Well, that's also something that we'll put in the appendix of the plan. And the same thing with like those chalkboards over there, simple stuff like that, that we could set up and carry those through the process to say, here's a photograph, by the way, here's the image. So, we're going to have photographs of these meetings that take place. We're going to continually put that in the plan and make sure that at the end of the document that a lot of these things are in there, so it doesn't just go, how did this all get decided? We'll have a thing that says, well, let's just say right now, optimistically, 1,200 people took our survey. And here are the results of that survey and how it relates back to the plan. And that's just another way to make that plan a little stronger, because what you just said is a really good thing, that it puts a bit more specificity. It shows those folks at the state that we didn't just pull it out of the hat, that this is a community plan. It's a way to justify that we did our job to reach out.
Let me take one more question because we appreciate your time. Yes, ma'am.
As you do these things, like the spreadsheet or whatever, after you tabulate all of these results from the surveys, will that be published in the local paper so that not just the people who are stakeholders at the meetings and things will see these things, but the general public can see it and perhaps become interested and at that point want to start taking part, or at least be able to discuss it and know that something's going on?
Very good question.
Right, Pickens Progress and No Pickens are included in our list of sending information to, and yes, ma'am, I mean, anybody else who's, whether it's the Big Canoe newspaper or something else, sure, I'll be glad to send them. Well, thank you again, and please come up and see us on an individual basis. Look around at this stuff, fill out the survey, this kind of stuff. Thank you again for your time.